Hey everyone, welcome back to our online IELTS lesson. Today's lesson will be on reading, and the type of question we're going to discuss today is matching paragraph heading question. We're going to learn some techniques on how to deal with matching paragraph heading questions, and also we will do the actual reading text on these type of question at the very last part of the lesson today. So if you're ready, let's begin. First off, the introduction of matching paragraph heading questions. Matching paragraph heading question basically looks like this. Just a second, I need to use my pen first. So reading passage 1 has 4 paragraphs A to D. You will have to choose correct heading for each paragraphs from the list of headings. So these are the list of headings. You can see they are marked with ancient Greek numbers, and here we have different paragraphs. These paragraphs show the paragraphs given in the reading text from A to D, and usually the number of headings always exceed than the number of paragraphs. So as you can see here, we have 4 paragraphs, and the number of paragraphs are 9. This also makes the reading task a little difficult. Right, now let's move on to the next page. Next up, I'm going to show you some techniques on how to deal with matching paragraph heading questions. Let's take a closer look at these techniques. First one, do paragraph heading questions last. Do all other questions for that passage first. For example, if there are some other types of questions for the same reading text, such as multiple choice or true false not given or gap fill questions, I would advise you to do all those type of questions first and do the matching paragraph question last. Why? Because while you're doing those questions, while you're dealing with other types of questions, you will be more familiar with the passage. You will read it thoroughly, and then when you start dealing with matching paragraph questions, you already know some of the information from the text, and you might even get some of the answers from memory. Next, technique number 2, underline keyword in each heading on the list. That's what we're going to do later. Number 3, then read the shortest or easiest paragraph. So usually, you don't really have to start the paragraphs from the very beginning. For example, if the paragraph A is the first one, you don't really have to start from paragraph A. You can start from any paragraph, because the heading is given separately for each paragraph in the task. That's why starting from the shortest paragraph saves your time. Also, the easiest paragraph. By easiest paragraph, I mean the one that you can get from memory, that the paragraph that you know more about. Usually you know more about one paragraph if you have dealt with the paragraph before, while you were doing other questions. So after you choose the paragraph, you should read it at normal speed, and then underline the main ideas in the paragraph. And the next thing you need to do is to compare them with all of the headings. Remember, you should compare it with all of the headings to not get confused, or you know, some of the headings are tricky sometimes. They look similar. That's why it's better to compare the information in the paragraph with all the headings. And the last thing that you need to do is to choose the best one. Alright, now let's move on. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to deal with the actual reading task matching paragraph question. As you can see, here are the list of headings. I couldn't fit the paragraphs here, the paragraph section here, because you know, there are lots of information in the text. That's why I could only fit the list of headings, and paragraphs are here. What we're going to do is, after we find the answers, the headings for each paragraph, we can just match it like this, like with any paragraph, the correct one. Alright, so let me erase this first. Okay, now let's start dealing with this task. As I said earlier, the first thing that we need to do is to underline the keywords in each heading. The first one, the effect of emphasis on short-term educational goals. So these are the emphasis on short-term goals. Next, the limited effects of music. Limited effects of music. Next one, the future of music. Benefits for health. The effects of early exposure to music. The skills involved in musical activity. A playwright's perception of music. Music has already been repeated several times, that's why we don't have to underline the music. Early exposure to music in the USA. Next one, music without instruments. The Mozart effect. This title has been chosen, this was given as an example, and it was chosen for paragraph A. That's why I had to cross it out like this, so we don't really have to pay attention to this one. Next one, the creation of the Voices Foundation, a method for training singers. The use of music. Sorry, I'm having a bit trouble here. So the use is also a keyword here. The use of music in Shakespeare's plays. Alright, now let's move on to dealing with the paragraphs. As I mentioned earlier, in the technique section, we need to start with the shortest paragraph. It's better to. We haven't done any other types of questions before dealing with this matching paragraph question. That's why let's start with the shortest paragraph. So B is the shortest paragraph here. Now let's read B together, and then we will compare it with the titles, with the headings, and try to get the best heading for the paragraph. Shakespeare, though, came clean. For him, the man who hath no music in himself, nor is not moved with concord of sweet sounds, is fit for treasons or stratagems and spoils. This is a very old English, so it's a bit difficult to read. The motions of his spirit are dull as night. Throughout his plays, Shakespeare perceives music as a healing force, an art whose practice makes men whole. So now let's underline some keywords from this paragraph. It's about Shakespeare. It says Shakespeare came clean. We don't really have to underline his words from his play, so let's underline here. Throughout his plays, Shakespeare perceives music as a healing force, an art whose practice makes men whole. Right, now let's try to compare this information with the headings. So the main keyword here is Shakespeare. We can try to look for the word Shakespeare in the headings. We have Mozart here. So let's start from the very beginning. We don't have Shakespeare in the first one. In the second heading, there's no Shakespeare. Fourth, third, there's no fourth as well. Fifth, sixth, and seventh. And seventh, we don't have Shakespeare, but we have the word playwright here. You know, Shakespeare was the playwright. In here in the last title we have Shakespeare, the word Shakespeare. Let's check this one first, because there is the word Shakespeare, so it would be better to check the one that the actual word from the text is given. The use of music in Shakespeare's plays. So the use of music in Shakespeare's plays. The main keyword here is the use of music, but does the paragraph mention about Shakespeare using music in his plays? It says here Shakespeare perceives music as a healing force, which means he understands music as a healing force, but there's nothing about him using music in his plays. He perceives music as a healing force and art whose practice makes men whole. Now let's go back to this one, paragraph 7. It says a playwright's perception of music. Now here the word perception can actually replace the word perceive here, right? Perceive is the verb form of perception. This is about the playwright's perception of music, his understanding of music. So in the paragraph it also says Shakespeare perceives music as a healing force. So this is actually about Shakespeare's perception of music, right? So the correct answer is this paragraph. So let's match it with B. Next, D. Paragraph D, let's read it together. Playing an instrument requires a degree of concentration and coordination. Playing an instrument requires a degree of concentration and coordination, which brings into play a plethora of mental and physical skills. So there's things about mental and physical skills which are being eroded in our push-button world. Socialization and teamwork are also involved. Schools with wind bands, string ensembles, jazz groups, orchestras are right up there at the top of the league tables. In excelling in musical activity, the students' performance in many other fields of learning is refocused and radically improved. Right, so here are I've actually highlighted so many words here, but let's try to compare the information with the headings. The first one, the effect of emphasis on short-term educational goals. Was there anything about short-term educational goals? No, nothing. The limited effects of music. There's nothing about limited effects of music. The future of music. I haven't found anything about the future of music. Benefits for health. Doesn't really fit the information. The effects of early exposure to music. Early exposure to music. No. The skills involved in musical activity. Now let's take a closer look at this one. The skills involved in musical activity. So the information here says playing an instrument requires a degree of concentration and coordination, which brings into play a plethora of mental and physical skills which are being eroded in our push-button world. Socialization and teamwork are also involved. So these usually talk about skills in musical activity, which means the answer here is this. So this one fits the paragraph D. Alright, now let's move on to the next page and look at some other paragraphs as well. Next we have two paragraphs here. I haven't chosen the paragraphs in order because I couldn't fit all of the paragraphs here. So before we start dealing with these two paragraphs, let's cross out the answers we've already chosen. It was this title, this heading, and playwright's perception of music, and this one was also given in the example, order or chaos. Let's cross them out like this. Just like we've done with the previous two paragraphs, let's start with the shortest paragraph here. The shortest one here is F, so we're going to start with paragraph F. But what of those individuals and schools which simply cannot afford a musical instrument? So let's underline the keywords here. What of those individuals and schools which simply cannot afford a musical instrument? What of those institutions where not a single member of staff can read music? This is where the human being's most primitive form of music making comes into its own. Singing is free. Everyone possesses a voice, and with it the body expresses itself in the most fundamental and organic way. Alright, let's compare this information with the headings here. First one, the effect of emphasis on short-term educational goals. I haven't found anything about short-term educational goals in the paragraph. The limited effects of music. The limited effect. Is there anything about limited effect? Not really. The future of music. There's nothing about the future. Benefits for health. There's nothing about the benefits of for health. Next, the effects of early exposure to music. Early exposure. So here in the paragraph it actually says this is where the human being's most primitive form of music making. Primitive means something very first, right? Music making comes into its own, but there's nothing about the effects of early exposure to music. Early exposure to music in the USA. There's nothing mentioned about USA in this paragraph. Next one, music without instruments. Music without instruments. We have read earlier that the first sentence of the paragraph, the topic sentence, starts like this: but what of those individuals and schools which simply cannot afford a musical instrument? So sometimes reading the first sentence of the paragraph also helps us to choose the correct heading, because the first sentence of the paragraph is usually the main sentence, is the topic sentence. It gives us the main topic of the paragraph. So it says the schools, individuals and schools which simply cannot afford a musical instrument, which means those individuals and schools without instruments, without musical instruments. So obviously the answer for F is this one. Now next one is G. The Hungarian composer Zoltán Kodály knew this and developed his own system of training ear and voice within a simple yet comprehensive system of body language. Today, an organization called the Voices Foundation adapts and applies Kodály's methods, aiming to give children back their singing and to make our schools ring with music once again. Their advisors and teachers have already achieved extraordinary turnaround effects, the length and breadth of Britain, and in schools in the troubled areas of South Africa. Okay, now let's compare these information with the headings here. The effect of emphasis on short-term educational goals. Still, there's no information in the paragraph about short-term educational goals. The limited effects of music. I didn't read anything about the limited effects. Future of music. Nothing about the future of music. Benefits for health. The effects of early exposure to music. There's nothing about early exposure. Early exposure in the USA. Nothing mentioned about the USA there. The Mozart effect. We have this composer, but his name is not Mozart. Next, the creation of the Voices Foundation. We actually came across this word in the paragraph, the Voices Foundation. Let's check that part. Today, an organization called the Voices Foundation adapts and applies Kodály's methods, aiming to give children back their singing and voices, to make our schools ring with music making once again. So the main word here in this title is the creation, but in the paragraph there is not much information about the creation. Actually, the creation wasn't really mentioned in the text. That's why this can't really be the true answer. Next one, a method for training singers. Let's take a closer look at this one, a method for training singers. So here it was mentioned that Hungarian composer Zoltán Kodály knew this and developed his own system of training. So he developed a system of training ear and voice within a simple yet comprehensive system of body language. Today, an organization called Voices Foundation adapts and applies Kodali's methods. So this is about his methods. So today, that organization adapts and applies these methods, actually aiming to give children back their singing voices and to make our schools ring with music making once again. Their advisors and teachers have already achieved extraordinary turnaround effects in the length, breadth of Britain and in schools in the troubled areas of South Africa. Of course, by using that method or those methods by that composer Zoltan Kodaly. So we have just found the answer here. It is this heading. It fits, it matches the paragraph G. Alright, so this is the end of our today's lesson. I hope today's techniques and methods and information were useful for our YouTube viewers. You can try doing matching paragraph heading questions later and try to use those methods and techniques I've taught you today, and you'll hopefully see the progress. I'll see you in the next lessons. Goodbye.